My friends John, Sammy, Devon and I are setting up a surprise party for my sister Karen. My sister, who is 7 years old and loves clowns. Karen is 3 feet 8 inches with light curly brown hair, ocean blue eyes and is skinny, like myself and my mother. My sister and I look almost the same, except I, resentfully, have a grey, steely eye color. I myself do not mind clowns, but kids her age should not be as obsessed as she is over them. Anyway, my mum is taking her to Hot Topic so we can set everything up. For this surprise party we are going to make our house a haunted house. So far we have the people who are going to scare her when she is walking through the house, and we have the clowns. The clowns are going to go at the end, save the best for last. All we need now is to convert our house into a haunted house. 3 hours later. We have finally converted a house to a haunted house. My sister and mom are 5 minutes away from our house, so I turn off the lights so it's dark. We go and hide in the closet on the left side of the front door and wait. I hear the car door open, shh, I tell my friends. We then hear the front door open. We jump out and boo. We scared them so much that they jumped 2 inches in the air. My sister slaps me. Don't do that, Katie, you almost gave me a heart attack. My sister said. Sorry, I tried to say but ended up laughing again, which led to my sister slapping me again. Hey, I was just trying to surprise you, I said to her. Happy birthday. My friends yelled. She looked at my friends, then looked around the room. What is this? It's so spooky. I like it though. My sister said to me. We have made a house look like one of those haunted houses that you would go to on Halloween. I knew you would. Okay, stop talking and more exploring the haunted house. I told my sister. Go on, we'll let you go by yourself so you get the full experience. My sister starts bouncing on her feet because she's so excited. She then starts to walk into the maze of a house we have made. She looks behind her to us one last time and goes into our haunted house. We hear her screams as she gets scared, but as time goes on they get fainter and fainter. When we think she is far enough, we go in to scare her one final time at the end of the haunted house. Ah! We all scream as we turn the corner. The first scare begins. Even though we are the ones who set this up and expect the scares, they still manage to get us. I love how it gets my adrenaline and other primal instincts going as we walk further and further into the haunted house. We get to the end but no sister in sight, nor are the clowns. Where is she? My mum asks. Well, she couldn't have gone far is what I'm thinking right now, but where are the clowns? I figured she teamed up with the clowns to get us back for earlier. Good luck with that. Ha. She couldn't have gone far. She's probably trying to get us back for scaring her earlier. I told my mom to comfort her. She didn't look like she believed what I had said, so I say okay, we can go look for her, but I promise you nothing is wrong. Or at least that was what I had thought. We decided it is better to split up into 2 groups to cover more ground. My mom, Sammy and John went together to search the left side of the house while Devon and I searched the right side. We find red paint drops on the ground as we walk, but I don't remember doing that. I look at Devon. Did you put red paint on the ground? I asked him. No, I didn't do that, maybe one of the others did it. He replied. I shiver. I can tell that he is nervous, or maybe he's scared. All I know is that I can't stop shaking. We continue on, but more quietly than before, for as we do want to hear whatever might jump out at us. We stopped at my sister's room when we heard something walking towards us from behind. We looked back, but there was nothing there. Okay, now this is getting really scary. Either we are hearing things or your sister is really good at this stuff. Devon said as his voice got shaker by the second. It would take us 5 minutes to get back to everyone else since we do live in a mansion and are on the other side of the house. Yeah, I agree with you. This is really scary. I think we should go back to the others. We turn back and scream as we see the clown standing there with a knife that is caked in blood. The clown is taller than Devon, who is 6 feet 10 inches, weighs 200 pounds of all muscle. Whether it was real or fake blood we don't know, and we are not going to find. Help us. Devon and I both scream as we go to turn back and run into my sister's room. We shut the door and lock it when we get in there. When we turned around, and what we see next would have made me piss myself if my body was working properly at that time. She was standing there with a knife in hand, just like the clown. I know you're probably thinking, well, how can a 7-year-old be scary? Well, if you were there looking into her eyes, or what you thought were her eyes, then believe me, you would have been scared too. Karen, this is not funny. There's a clown out there with a knife that is bloody. I said to her. I look at her, then to Devon. Devon seems to be in shock. I nudge him with my shoulder. He doesn't move. Devon? Devon? You good? He finally calms down enough to look at me. I can barely see the expression on his face since it is so dark. I think he is scared. Yes, I'm good, but I don't like what's going on. I think there is something wrong with your sister. She's like possessed or something, he said with a little more strength in his voice. I totally agreed with him. My instincts were telling me to jump out the window that's right next to us, but instead I said, nah, she's just messing with us. I bet you she got that clown to dip his knife into the red paint that we have in the garage. Now she's acting like a demonic person because she thinks it's funny. Which, by the way, isn't funny at all. You got Mom upset. Come on, we have to go, Karen. She doesn't move. She's still staring at us like she isn't actually looking at us but through us. It's really creepy. I now have goosebumps and my body is screaming, run or go hide behind something. I go to look at Devon, but then my sister starts running at us with the knife still in her hand. We go to run but run into the door and we fall down. My sister, who is now standing over us, says something but I can't hear what she's saying. I don't even think it is English. She lifts something and then brings it down. I don't remember feeling anything. It's dark and cold. Next thing I know, the lights turn on and there they are standing in the middle of the garage covered in blood. The gardeners, they called us. We were the only ones they trusted to take care of Eden, and I was one of the lucky few to make it all the way here. The application process had been grueling, but now, as I sat in the middle of a crowded train, I couldn't help but smile. Being a gardener was the highest level of work, guaranteed riches, guaranteed insurance, and the best medical care Earth had to offer. So long as you keep Eden alive. That phrase had been ingrained in my head by my superiors, over and over and over. At all costs. The words hung over my head, a guillotine blade waiting to strike. And in the deepest moments of quiet, I could swear that the device they'd implanted in my head was whispering it too. I looked around. With the amount of people on this train, a broken bar, how many of them had it? Could they hear it too? The mixed looks of impassiveness and fear didn't answer my questions. As I tried to shift around, the voice above broke the silence. Now approaching, Eden. We exited the dark tunnel, and the train was filled with sunlight. Many of us squinted and looked away. Sunlight was a luxury from where we were from, but here, it felt like a necessity. My eyes adjusted quickly, and what I saw blew me away. It was a sea of green, pierced by the vibrant colors of fruits and the waters running through the fields. Many were already working below us, and the bright sun shied them away from staring at our train for too long. I saw it all for a moment, before dark walls blocked my view once more. Final stop, Station Eden. Step away from the opening doors, the announcer said. I put my hand on the window, the thumb they'd painted green when I first stepped on, leaving a mark on the glass. Soon, I whispered, before the crowds filing through the doors pulled me away. We stood in a line now, long enough that I couldn't see what was happening in front. I sighed. I'd had enough lining up already when I was applying. Maybe bureaucracy was the biggest evil all along. We managed to kill nature, but we hadn't found a better way of lining up. It moved quickly, however, and in no time at all, I was nearing the front. "Hands, please," the guard at the head was saying. Each person would raise both their hands to chest level, and, seemingly at random, the guard would put them in one of two holding areas. The one on the left, however, was quickly getting overcrowded, while the one on the right held only 3 or 4 people inside. I was 4 people away from the guard when I realized the selection wasn't at random. Everyone had a painted thumb, but I'd only ever seen 2 colors, the black of the people ahead of me, and the green on mine. The guard quickly sent the ones with black paint to the left area, meaning that, "Hands, please." Too late. The guard was already waiting in front of me. "Hands?" he repeated. I shakily brought up my hands, and he smiled when he saw the green on my right hand. "This way, please," he finished, signaling me to the almost empty area. I walked to a corner of the pen, and quickly sat down, shaking. Why separate us? What does the paint mean? Why are we so little here? The device in my head whispered its answer to me: keep Eden alive. At all costs. Soon enough, the whole line was finished. From the crowded train the guards had managed to find the 20 of us with green paint. The rest? All were crammed into the opposite area, and led away by armed guards. They disappeared around the corner, and I saw them no more. Gardeners. A voice interrupted my thoughts. A young, bubbly woman, skin darkened by the sunlight, was calling us. "Welcome, welcome, to Eden. I am Cassandra, head of this fine garden, and now, responsible for all of your first years here." She paused, as if waiting for applause. When none came, she continued, "Now, before we begin, all of you were implanted with your devices, correct?" We all nodded in agreement. "Good. Of course, to be safe, you won't mind if we test it, do you?" Before we could reply, she pressed a button, and all went black. Panicking, I immediately stumbled around, looking for something to hang on to. I bumped into quite a few on the way to the corner I'd come from, and I could tell they were all stumbling around like me. Right as I grabbed onto a post, I heard another button press, and my vision came back, clear as day. Some of us, like me, had managed to hold on to the fence surrounding us, but most were on the floor, caressing bruised heads and arms from bumping each other. "Well then," Cassandra began. "Looks like it's working perfectly. If you all will follow me, I have your assignments here. Simply come when I call your name and we'll guide you to your work. Remember, gardeners, we have one job, and one job only. Keep Eden alive. At all costs." The words came out of all our mouths instantly, without us willing it. I slapped my hands over my mouth, but no more came out. Cassandra smiled. "Perfect. Let's go. Equals. Hours later, I was sweating under the harsh sunlight. I had been assigned to a group of freshly planted seeds, and given a heavy bag of fertilizer. My partner, meanwhile, was holding a watering can, and guiding me through the rows. He would water, I would shovel fertilizer on it, we'd continue. Water. Fertilizer. Water. Fertilizer. Water. Fertilizer. The pattern grows on you, you know, my partner said out of the blue. He was a veteran of almost 5 years, or so Cassandra had said. When you've been doing this for as long as me, well, it honestly gets really boring. But what we do's important. World's relying on us. I nodded, too tired to say anything. Came here from the Philippines a while back, you know. I nodded again. How about you? What's your story? I opened my mouth to answer, but was distracted by the flashing in my vision. Low battery. Low battery. Low battery. It was accompanied by the device practically shouting the words in my ear. I dropped the fertilizer in surprise. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah, it's just flashing a low battery warning," I answered. "Oh, that's normal. Let me get you to a technician." "Sure, Let me just The yelp came out before I could stop it. I felt the device shut off, and with it, a splitting headache. I fell to the ground, hands on my head, my vision going black once more. In a few more seconds, I began drifting to unconsciousness. I fought back, opening my eyes wide, and the sights shook me back awake. The sunlight above filtered down on a garden afar broken by red. A metallic smell filled the air, reminiscent of knee scrapes and open wounds, of injured lips and broken noses. Blood. It was everywhere, flowing through the soil like a dancer through a crowd. I traced a stream as it waltzed through the stalks, as if teasing the plants with its liquid, before finally being absorbed into the soil below. I watched it flow through the leaves, a macabre tango of green and red now tinting the plant's veins. My arm called me back to reality, and I lifted it from the ground, seeing the blood-encrusted soil sticking to my arms. I heard my partner drop his watering can to the ground, and I watched the mixture of water and blood flow from the top, the pale pink capturing me in its elegance. I retched, and turned away, ready to vomit. In the distance, I saw the fertilizer bag I dropped, its contents now leaking too. And what I had thought to be a tough lump of soil, one I was trying to break with a shovel, a broken bar, now stared back at me. The eyes were lifeless, the nose and cheeks broken by my repeated swings, and the mouth still caught in a final shout of defiance. I vomited on the ground, and collapsed, unconsciousness finally winning over in my head. As my eyes closed, my partner crouched near me, their voice a non-existent sound in my head's barrage of noise. By his feet, I noticed one last thing laying on the ground innocently. A thumb, colored pitch black. Equals. I woke up on a sofa, in the middle of a bright white room. Across from me, Cassandra and another man were at a desk, reading from a computer. I shifted, and they immediately noticed I was awake. "Good morning," Cassandra said brightly. "You were out for quite a while, you know. Missed a whole day of work. But that's okay, malfunctions happen." "Malfunctions?" I said softly. "Malfunctions," the man at the desk said, and both of them joined me at my side. "I'm Matt. I'm the technician around here. Looks like you accidentally got a bad device," he continued, pulling out a small chip. I recognized it as the one they put in my head a long time ago. "Didn't warn you of a low battery quick enough, and took a while to knock you out. Usually comes with age. But we've replaced it, and now you're as good as new." "Blood," I said suddenly. Matt and Cassandra looked at each other. "Blood?" Cassandra asked innocently. "Blood. So much blood, the memories were flooding back in. You killed them. Not me, personally, but the fertilizer. I saw it. Head. Screaming. Black thumb." They went silent at that, until Cassandra grabbed my shoulder. "Let's go for a walk." It wasn't a request. It was an order. I stood up with her, and we left Matt's office. Right outside, in the hallway, was a massive window, overlooking Eden below. She stopped me there, and we watched the gardeners work in the sea of green. "Why do we do all this?" Cassandra began. "Murderers," I whispered back. Her grip tightened on my shoulder. "We do this, because we have to. Nature outside of these walls is dead. It's a myth. A fairy tale. Kids will learn of trees as they do dragons. We are humanity's final hope. That doesn't mean you can kill everyone." "Everyone?" She laughed. "If I wanted everyone dead, I'd burn this place down. No, child. We kill the unwanted. The outcasts. The pariahs. If they do not fit into this world, well, I will grind them down until they do." She gestured to the plants below. "Do you not agree that this is the best ending for them? Can you not see the paradise I've built? Built on the corpses of many. The corpses of few," she corrected, "to save the many. You're a gardener now. This is part of the job. No matter what choice you make, She let go of my shoulder, leaving a bruise behind. "I'll make sure you end up down there. One way or another." She walked away now, leaving me staring down, alone with my thoughts. Or I thought I was, until a new voice intruded in. It burrowed in my head, urging me to listen to it, overriding all my other thoughts. And as I wept, overlooking the beautiful gardens below, it forced open my mouth, the words jumping out in between sobs. "Keep Eden alive. At all costs." The back door to the house was locked, but a swift kick to the jam popped it open. 6 teenagers walked into the dimly lit dwelling. The air was stale and musty. It was offensive to the senses. At one time, the old home sat on a manicured yard laced with roses, dogwoods, and hydrangeas. Flower beds lined the edges of the foundations, and flowers burst forth with an array of colors. Mother Nature dipped her brush onto her palette and painted each flower with various spectacular hues, tints, and tones. Some were luminous, while others were dense and opaque. Now, the old house was overrun with drooping branches, vines, and briars. Years of neglect and abandonment had taken their toll on the property. What once was inviting was now succumbing to the darkness and the shadows. The for sale sign had rusted away, hidden by weeds, briars, and wild bushes. It, too, had slowly decayed. It seemed something dark and ominous wanted the property and would stop at nothing to succeed. "It's really dark in here," said Jean. "We need some lights." "We only have this small flashlight," said Billy. "Maybe we can start a fire." "Yep," said Gim, laughing. "We can pull those drapes, and no one will see the light. I'll find something to burn. I may have to break a few chairs." Minutes later, the fireplace roared with a warm and inviting fire. The dancing flames chased the shadows into hiding as it lit up the room. "This place is spooky," said Irene, glancing around the room. The once immaculate sofas, tables, chairs, and lamps were coated with a thick layer of dust, hiding their rich inlaid tops and finishes. The rugs still boasted their rich colors, but they also appeared to have been dusted with a light powder. "If they catch us here, we'll all be in trouble," said Irene. "My dad will kill me." Billy laughed. "No one ever comes here. This old house has been abandoned for years." Jean screamed, "I saw something moving in the shadows by the stairs." "Stop it, Jean, you scared the daylights out of me," said Lily. She grabbed Jean's hand and held it tight. "Please don't do that again." The fire burned, sending shadows dancing on the walls. "I wondered why anyone would abandon a house like this," asked Billy. "I can tell you," said Jim. He looked around the room and pointed to a large picture hanging over a desk. "That family there, the Johnsons, built this house, way back before any of us were born. The story goes that once they moved in, strange and eerie things begin to happen for some reason. This old house was haunted." Jean interrupted, "Haunted?" "Yes," said Jim, holding up his hands, pretending to be a ghost. He continued, "All I know is all of them were murdered, here in this house. I've heard it was terrible, all slaughtered, and they never knew who killed them." "You're making that up," said Jean. "You're just trying to scare us." "No, not really," said Jim. "That's the story. Since the murders, no one has lived in this old place. They just locked it up, and here it sits." "Well, it makes a fine place to party," said Irene. They all sat around the fire drinking beer and laughing. Things couldn't be any better. It was a great place to gather and hang out. "We should have thought of this a long time ago," said Jim. "It's quite nice." "Let's tell some ghost stories," said Irene. It was an excellent thought, but no one knew any terrifying stories. So they all sat and stared into the fire. "I've got an idea," said Lily. "Let's hold a SA tilde copyright dance and see if we can contact the people who were murdered and ask them who killed them." Everyone stared at the young girl. "Are you kidding?" asked Jean. "No, said Lily. It would be fun. Do you know how to hold SA copyright dance? Asked Jim. No, but we can try, said Lily laughing. Are you guys scared? She looked around at her friends. Well, are you guys chicken or what? Let's do it, said Jean. It might be fun. If anything happens, we can always run away. They all laughed. Okay, what do we need to do? Asked Jim. Throw some more wood on the fire, find some candles, and we'll sit in a circle, and I'll call on the spirits that live in the shadows, said Lily. I may have to break a couple more chairs, said Jim. I'll find something to burn while you guys look for the candles. Moments later, they all sat around the fire. They placed several candles in a circle, and the 6 teenagers sat around the candles holding hands. The fire created eerie shadows dancing on the walls, moving about as the flames danced. So now what? Asked Pete. Guys, I don't think this is a good idea. You're messing with something you know little about. You may conjure up something evil. Oh, don't be a scaredy cat, said Lily. What's the worst that can happen? Lily began. I call on the spirits that are here in this house, said Lily. Show yourself, speak to us from the shadows. Nothing happened. We are here to talk to the spirits of this house, Lily repeated. Come out of the shadows, we command you to appear. She looked around and laughed. I saw this on TV, they have to obey. Still, the old house was silent. I beseech you to appear, I command you to appear, snapped Lily. A raspy voice echoed throughout the house. Who are you to command me? Everyone sat silent. The shadows on the wall danced, moving back and forth guided by the flames. Did you hear that? Asked Lily. Of course we heard it, Lily. What was that? Asked Pete. It's the spirits who lived in this house, said Lily. How do you know who it is? Asked Pete. Guys, we need to leave. What Lily is doing isn't safe. Don't be so scared, said Lily. The dead can't hurt us. Are you the spirits that were murdered in this house? Asked Lily. She was proud of herself. This was her first SA copyright dance, and it was working. What could possibly go wrong? Lily repeated. Are you the spirits that were murdered in this house so long ago? The raspy voice spoke once more. Number. The sound echoed throughout the house. Were you killed in this house? Lily asked. No, said the voice. Who are you? Asked Lily. What are you doing in this house? You invited me in, said the raspy voice. You commanded me to appear. You conjured me up from the shadows. What's your name? Asked Lily. I go by many names. Some call me evil, and others say I'm an abomination living in the shadows. I've been known as Odium, the creator of hatred. Why have you summoned me? Lily sat erect. Did you kill the people who lived here so long ago? Odium laughed, and the sound reverberated throughout the house. Then a low, raspy voice echoed, yes. Cold chills ran up Lily's back. She broke the chain of hands and said, let's get out of here. As the 6 teenagers stood to leave, the voice spoke once more. Silly girl, don't you know when you summon a dark spirit, you have to give him a sacrifice? You can't awaken something like me and not pay for your actions. If you don't offer me a sacrifice, I'll be insulted. If you insult me, I'll kill all of you, and you will live in the shadows too. It's your choice. What kind of sacrifice? Asked Jim. What do you want from us? We don't have anything to offer. Oh, but you do, said the raspy voice. You have a soul. Jean, Irene, and Lily began to cry. Jim pleaded with the dark spirit, please let us leave, we meant no harm. No, shouted the raspy voice. I must have my sacrifice. Give me a soul, or all of you will succumb to my wrath, as did the family that lived here so long ago. They, too, conjured me up. They couldn't give one up, so I killed them all. More shadows danced on the walls as the fire burned. Jim, Billy, Jean, Irene, and Lily began to weep. We're sorry, cried Lily. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm so sorry, please leave us. I'll leave. But one of you must stay. I will have my sacrifice. Pete spoke up, you guys leave, and I'll stay. They all stared at the shy, soft-spoken teenager. Pete, said Lily. The raspy voice broke the silence, leave now, or I'll kill all of you. The boy will be your sacrifice. I will have his soul. Everyone ran toward the door, leaving Pete standing in the den. The van started, and Pete heard the vehicle heading up the drive. They all abandoned him to face the dark spirit. They're gone, said Pete. Two boys came down the stairs with a megaphone and a voice-changing device. How did we do, Pete? Asked one of the boys. Great, said Pete. I think Jim and Billy peed their pants. Pete laughed, held up his hands, and said mockingly, I will have his soul. They all laughed and walked toward the back door. As they neared the door, it slammed shut. Hello, raspy voice echoed throughout the house, I will have my sacrifice. A group of girls wandered outside the school during lunchtime. Most of them were excited because something special was coming to town, the Carnival of Mysteries. Don't tell me you're not going to it, Dana, one of the most excited girls said. It hasn't visited our town in about 100 years. Couldn't you put your suspicions and fears aside just for one night? Dana sighed and pushed her glasses back up her nose. She was dressed in an ankle-length light blue dress and buckled dress shoes. In her shoulder-length brown hair was a pink bow. I just don't think we should go without any chaperones is all. What if something bad happened, Ronnie? Unlike Dana, Ronnie was one of the popular girls. Also unlike Dana, she was wearing a school sweater, as well as jeans with turned-up cuffs, and sock-hop shoes. She wouldn't dream of having a bow of any color in her hair. That just wasn't the sort of girl she was. Nothing bad ever happens at a carnival, Ronnie said. That's just a myth. It's like riding a roller coaster. No matter how scary it seems, sometimes the operators would never deliberately let anything happen to the riders. The illusion is what gives the riders their thrills. Same thing with this carnival. It's all just illusions. Nothing is really what it seems. Maybe that's the problem, Dana said. If it isn't what it seems, maybe it's really dangerous. Ronnie rolled her eyes. You seriously think so? Or are you just inventing excuses to avoid going to the carnival with the rest of us? You're not just going to spend another night at home reading your literature books, are you? Maybe, Dana replied. You don't normally try to include me. Why are you doing it this time? Just to see if I do something dumb and you can laugh about it? Ronnie pursed her lips. It wasn't easy being both popular and Dana's friend. If I promise to let nothing bad happen to you, will you come with us? Promise? Dana asked. Hope to die, stick a needle in your eye? Well, I hope it doesn't come to that, but yes, I promise, Ronnie replied. Dana thought about it. All right. I'll get my homework done as soon as I can and then let my parents know about the carnival during dinner. What if they don't let you go to it? Ronnie asked. I can climb out of my bedroom window, Dana replied. I've done it before. No tricks? Ronnie asked. No tricks, Dana replied. Ronnie checked the Minnie Mouse watch on her left wrist. If all goes well, we'll pick you up at about 7:30. It'll be dark by then. We'll drop you off at home afterward at around 11 p.m. It's a Friday night and coming home that late shouldn't cause any problems for any of us. Dana wasn't so sure, but she nodded agreement anyway. Dana and her father were both sitting at the dining room table as Dana's mother served dinner to the three of them. Homework done? Her father asked. Dana nodded. He looked at her mother. I don't have a problem with it, if you don't, dear. But she has to be home no later than 11 p.m. Agreed, Dana's mother said. And you aren't going alone, I hope. Dana shook her head. I'm going with Ronnie and the other girls. Her mother's left eyebrow rose. She's willing to let you come along? That's unusual. I thought that her chums wouldn't be in favor of that. Maybe they aren't, but she is, Dana said. I'll even try to bring back a Cupid doll for both of you. Have fun and be safe, her mother said, and her father echoed it. At 7:30 p.m., there was a car honk outside the house. Dana grabbed a sweater and ran to the front door. It was a Chevy Bel Air convertible with Ronnie behind the wheel. The front seat was full, but Ronnie gestured to Dana and pointed at the empty spot. The other girls didn't seem so thrilled when Dana got in. But Ronnie looked at each of them. They didn't argue a broken bar with her anyway. Ronnie nodded and drove through the evening darkness to the carnival's site in a field outside of town. This is supposed to be even better than the last the carnival came to town, Ronnie explained along the way. More sideshow tents. A second Ferris wheel. New rides. It's going to be loads of fun. What about Miss Prissy? The girl next to Ronnie asked. Her name is Dana, Ronnie replied, and I'll be with her the entire time. I promised that nothing bad would happen to her, and I don't break my promises. Ever. In any case, you gals can scatter and go anywhere in the carnival you want to go. You don't even have to stay together. But just remember the departure time, 10:30 p.m. I promised I would get Dana back home before 11 p.m. That's so early. Another girl complained. Couldn't you just take her home and come back to the carnival afterward? I suppose, Tammy, Ronnie said, not sounding too happy about the change in schedule. But I can't be home later than midnight. I don't want to get grounded like I was last time we stayed out too late. Your parents are so strict, Ronnie, the girl next to Dana said. It's Friday night. Can't they just be a little less strict this time? Ronnie shook her head. Mum's sister dropped out of college, Judy. Mom and Dad are determined that the same thing doesn't happen to me. School first, fun second. There's the carnival, Tammy exclaimed, pointing at the lights, tents, and rides sitting in the middle of a large field. Parking was in the grass nearby. There seemed to be hundreds of cars there already, and more were arriving every minute. Ronnie found a spot near the back row. Have fun, everyone, Ronnie said. The rest of the girls, except for Dana, scattered, laughing and giggling as they crossed the parking area. Ronnie and Dana took their time walking from the parking area to the carnival. Up ahead, the entrance sign was bordered by colored light bulbs and the words made out of neon tubes, Carnival of Mysteries. I'm sorry about the ride here, Ronnie said quietly. You're not in charge of their mouths, Dana said. You did defend me, though, which I appreciated. They don't know that the only reason I passed government last year was because we studied for the end-of-term test together, Ronnie said. I can't flunk any of my high school classes, or my parents won't pay for my college education. You're also not as dumb as the other girls, Dana said. I don't know why you hang out with them. Isn't there anyone smarter than them at school? Besides yourself? Ronnie asked as they walked through the carnival's entrance. Dana nodded. Not really, Ronnie said. I bet most of the girls will drop out during their first year of college once they find someone to marry. Won't their parents mind the waste of money? Dana asked. I'm not sure if their parents really care, Ronnie replied. Their parents are some of the wealthiest in the county. As long as their precious angels are happy, they probably could care less about the cost. They've probably already lined up affluent bachelors for their daughters to marry. I'm glad that you're different from them, Dana said. I'm glad that you are, too, Ronnie said. I spy a ball throwing tent. Want to try to win a Cupid doll or two? Dana nodded. I told my parents I'd try to win them one each, if I could. Here's your chance, then, Ronnie said. Afterward, Dana tried not to giggle. Good thing I never tried out for the softball team. I'm surprised I didn't bean the man behind the counter with one of my throws. She looked at the Cupid doll in her hand. At least I won one of them. Make that two, Ronnie said, handing Dana her own Cupid doll. Oh no, I couldn't, Dana protested. You don't have to. I have plenty of them at home that I've won at other carnivals over the years, Ronnie said. I didn't really need another one. Besides, I think they're happier together. Dana looked at the Cupid dolls. They did seem happier together. Thank you. I don't know how to repay you. Just don't ever change, Ronnie said. Want to share some cotton candy next? Dana nodded. The carnival's layout was much bigger than Dana had expected. In fact, they hadn't seen any of the other girls since entering the carnival grounds. And they'd long since finished their cotton candy by the time they reached the big tent in the center. I hope there's something less silly in there than inside some of those sideshow tents, Dana said. The man dressed up as the mummy looked ridiculous. So did the one dressed up as Frankenstein's monster, Ronnie said and giggled. And the two midget twins who were supposed to be so strong a broken bar. I don't think those barbells were really that heavy, do you? Probably just inflated balloons, Dana said. Come on. Let's go inside. They entered the big tent. The bleachers were about half full, which made it easy to find two empty seats where they could sit next to each other. On the floor of the tent was an MC with a bullhorn. Ladies and gentlemen. The MC said through the bullhorn. Since this is the first night of the carnival's run this time around, we have some new acts to present to you. Not just the flying trapeze artists, but new mythological beings. We begin with a broken bar the Gorgon. A veiled woman walked into the center of the floor area. Her hair seemed to be moving about, which seemed odd to Dana. Hair doesn't do that. Unless, of course, it isn't really hair. We can't let her reveal her face or you'd all turn to stone. The MC explained. But let's have her demonstrate it on something else. Maybe a plant? A tall plant was brought into the floor area and placed about 20 feet from the Gorgon. She turned to face the plant, almost as if she could see it through the veil covering her face. It won't take long. The MC assured the audience. All right, dear. You can take it off, but keep your eyes on the plant, not on the rest of us. The Gorgon obediently removed the veil. In seconds, the plant froze. When she turned herself away from the MC and the audience, the MC walked over to the plant and knocked it down. It shattered into 1,000 frozen pieces. That was a living plant, Ronnie said. Was, Dana said. How's that, folks? The MC said. One guaranteed turned to stone plant. If you ever wanted a statue but didn't want to pay for it and can't sculpt one, the Gorgon could provide you with all the statues you ever wanted. No kidding, Dana said dryly. Do we have any volunteers who want to risk being turned to stone? The MC asked. No one in the audience answered. All right. Then we have a few available. Bring the girls in. Ronnie and Dana gasped. The girls were Tammy, Judy, and the third girl whose name Dana didn't know. They seemed to have their hands tied behind their backs. Can they do this? Dana whispered to Ronnie. Isn't this illegal? If they get turned to stone, they're as good as dead. Ronnie looked around. I don't see any police officers. But what do we do? Dana insisted. We can't let them be turned to stone. We may not have much of a choice, Ronnie said unhappily. I guess any carnival of mysteries has some kernel of truth to it. This, apparently, is one of those kernels. I don't want to watch this, Dana said and scrambled down the bleacher. Ronnie hesitated, then followed her. Both were still upset, Dana possibly more than Ronnie. Once they were outside, Dana exclaimed, we have to rescue them, Ronnie. We can't let them die in there. If it's not too late, you mean, Ronnie said. How do you propose to get them away from that MC and the Gorgon? What if she looks at us and turns us to stone instead? Are you willing to take that risk? Dana looked unhappy. But their parents, eh? I know, Ronnie said. Look. Let's go back in there. but on the floor level and see if they're still okay. Dana nodded. Inside the big tent, they saw the three girls. Their hands weren't tied anymore. In fact, they were standing perfectly still. The Gorgon was looking away from them, the MC, and the audience. Had it happened already? The MC went to Tammy a broken bar and yanked her stone head off of her stone shoulders. Dana screamed. She wasn't the only one. Ronnie also screamed and so did the audience. There was immediate pandemonium. The MC said, "No, no. You don't understand. These are just statues. The girls are just fine. Let me show you. Bring out the girls." But it was too late. The big tent was emptying fast, people running in all directions away from it. The police headed toward the big tent, disappearing inside it. Outside the big tent again, Dana and Ronnie were hugging each other, trying not to cry. "She can't be dead, she can't be," Dana said. "This is all just a sick joke." "I don't think so," Ronnie said. The police reappeared outside the tent. The MC walked ahead of them, his arms cuffed behind his back. "I want to go home," Dana insisted. "Take me home, Ronnie." Ronnie nodded and looked around them. "Which way back to the parking area, though?" "What do you mean?" Dana asked. "The same way we came." "And which way is that?" Ronnie replied. "Look around us." Dana did so. Every direction looked the same. She couldn't even tell where the tent was where they'd won their Cupid dolls. "But that doesn't make any sense," Dana said. "Maybe if we just pick a direction and keep going until we leave the carnival grounds. If the parking area isn't on that side, we can just circle around the carnival grounds until we reach it." Half an hour later, they were still lost. Each row of game tents looked like every other row. The big tent was the only visible landmark that was unique. Even with most of the crowds gone for the night after the horrifying event at the big tent, it was impossible to know which direction to go in. "What if we just followed the North Star?" Dana suggested. "Pop said you just look for the Big Dipper and then follow its handle to the star at its end. There are plenty of stars above us, but I can't see the Big Dipper," Ronnie said. "Maybe we need to go where there are fewer tents." With some trouble, they finally reached the eating area. It wasn't near the parking area, but at least it was near one edge of the carnival grounds. There were just half a dozen people here. 5 visitors and a clown entertaining them. Dana sat down at one of the tables, and Ronnie sat down next to her. Did we imagine it? Dana wondered. Did we really see those 3 girls turned to stone? It sure seemed like it, Ronnie said. And then Tammy's head, Dana said, but couldn't say the rest. That seemed real, too, Ronnie said. But was it? Dana wondered. Were we just fooled by something that seemed too good to be true? You mean, were we scammed by a convincing con artist? Ronnie asked. Dana nodded. I guess we won't know until tomorrow morning, Ronnie said, when the parents of those 3 girls call our parents, demanding to know where their daughters are and what happened to them. Would they believe us if we told them? Dana asked. Or would they call us liars? What would you call us if you were them? Ronnie replied. Tell them something that's just too difficult to believe, that we saw a real, honest-to-goodness Gorgon who could turn plants and people to stone. Dana sighed. Let's try getting out of this carnival again. I want to go home. Don't you? Ronnie nodded. It took them about another 30 minutes, but they eventually got directions that took them back to the parking area. They saw almost no one on the way there. I'm going to have nightmares tonight, Dana said. I just know I will. You and me both, Ronnie said. As Ronnie predicted, the next morning the phone rang again and again at their respective homes. First, the girls' parents, then the police. They were asked to make a statement at the police station. They did so, but the police simply didn't believe them. But what else could Ronnie and Dana say when the truth was unbelievable? Back home, Their parents considered grounding them but chose not to. They weren't to blame for what happened, after all. If you check the town archives, you'll learn that that was the last time the Carnival of Mysteries visited that town, a broken bar, or any other town, for that matter. Darkness encroaches on every nook and cranny of the pitch-black hallway. The cold, damp atmosphere sent chills through my spine as I stumble forward, a dim lantern being my only source of light to guide me on my path. This place always creeped me out, ever since I started working here 25 years ago. In all my years, I never thought the atrocities that happened today to be possible. There is a weight on my chest that fills my mind with dread and my heart with worry. This place has never seen a form of darkness like the one that blankets it this night. Through the pain and mental torment, I continue with the goal of fixing all the wrong that has been done. My body feels stiff as I drag my left leg forward in a limp. The lacerations inflicted by the blade formed puddles of blood that I leave in my wake, acting as a breadcrumb trail to anyone perusing. The picture of my family, my wife and kids, sears into my mind as I think about what might happen to them should I fail to complete my task. My love burns deep inside, pushing my body forward against the force that begs it to stop. The lantern bounces up and down against my swaying body, throwing light against the walls and floor with unbalance. Doors align on either side of me, each room a place to harbor the monsters that inhabit this awful place. Screams and moans from the layers of the broken and the damned fill the hallway as they hear me moving forward. The dark tunnel that I traverse is, aside from the trail of blood, empty. Its cold and unwelcoming tiled floor invites the echoes of my feet, the noise of which would alert the dead should they be anywhere nearby. Panic starts to wash over me like a monsoon tearing through a village. They knew where my family lived, they knew my one weakness. My wife and my kids were the one thing in this world that could drive me against all that I believe. They were my world, and I was their strength and security. I would find the man that did this, and I would end him in the most gruesome manner I could think of. He deserved it. The cold dead stares of my 3 colleagues he brutally murdered still haunt my thoughts. I had to watch as he ripped his sharp monstrous claws into the first person's neck, tearing into the flesh as if it were a wet piece of paper. The sound of the muscles being ripped into, and the bones of the spinal cord snapping, and popping twisted my stomach and tried my mental well-being. My colleague's mouth mimed words as his vocal cords were severed and the gurgling sound of the iron liquid filled his throat. His name was Samuel, and he had a wife that was expecting a child soon. His wife would now be thrown into this cold dark world alone, and the baby would likely die with its mother from hunger. As my hand shot to my mouth in horror, the monster was already making his move for the second nearest person. Her name was Molly, and she was a ripe 23 years of age. Her beauty was limitless, and her youthful mind created new and innovative ways to complete our work. When I would think of her, the picture of her smiling warm face would always fill my mind, reminding me of a freshly blossomed rose. Now, my mind is filled with the image of her sky-blue eyes being pushed in as her screams overwhelmed the room where these dark deeds took place. After her eyes were finished being pushed in, the man put his hands in her gaping mouth and pulled until the jaw was removed from its hinge. This was not sufficient though. As she continued to make noise he continued to pull harder until the flesh tore halfway down her throat. As the blood shot out of her neck, the monster dropped her flailing body to the ground. Finally coming to my senses, I grabbed a scalpel from the metal tray nearby and started toward the beast. Unfortunately for Daniel, I was moments too late, and the monster pushed his hand deep into Daniel's gut, pulling the innards out with a slimy slushing noise. I stabbed the scalpel into the hideous creature's forearm as deep as his thick skin would allow. Blood of the same color as that leaving Daniel's stomach gushed out of the creature's arm as it jerked away, pulling the scalpel out. The monster wailed in pain as it dropped Daniel's intestines and started toward me. As the intestines of my former colleague dropped to the floor with a slush, I stabbed the knife into the creature once more. This time, my blade made its way into his leg. Daniel joined his intestines on the floor with a thud as the monster stopped in his tracks and prepared to make its escape. As the creature came to a halt, our eyes met for a fraction of a moment. I could see the fear that steered the actions that transpired in front of me, like a wild animal trapped in a corner fighting to get back into their natural habitat. It attempted to flee, falling to the floor, scrambling, and flailing in the blood before getting up again and making it to the door. It flung the door open, pounding against the wall with a force that shattered the glass pane embedded within. As the shards rained down to the floor with flicking glimmers of light refracting off each sharp surface creating fleeting specks that danced across the floor, I couldn't help but to ask myself why this creature would do this. The family of this monster entrusted us with his care, to try to make him better. To cure him. You see, this monster is, or was at one time, human. They would claim there was nothing wrong with them, that their random bursts of anger and violence was normal. They would claim self-defense, or that they didn't have multiple personalities. We knew the truth though, and it was our job to help these poor tortured souls regardless of their wishes or desires. After some time had passed, my mind came back to reality, and I noticed the blood trail leaving the room. The creature was still bleeding and leading me straight to them. I calmed my nerves by walking over to the office room next door and approaching the desk. I slid open the drawer with haste, jumbling the contents inside. My hands found the bottle of the 15-year-aged whiskey I had been craving as well as the .38 special revolver I would use to avenge my colleagues and end this creature's reign of terror. I ensured the revolver was loaded, spinning the cylinder and listening to the click of the gear. When I was satisfied, I opened the bottle and downed the beautiful amber liquid. As the burn carried its way down my throat and into my stomach, I tucked the gun in my waistband, grabbed the lantern from the desk, and made my way into the hall. It wasn't until I re-entered the darkness of this tunneling trail that I noticed my leg had been hit by something blunt causing a slight limp in my step. Mental patients, that's what they wanted us to call them. To me, they were all creatures of terror and darkness. They couldn't be cured or saved, nothing we ever did truly helped them. Most of our patients would get worse after our treatments, but after some time I realized we weren't there to cure them. We were there to punish them for their wickedness and sin, to torture them as they tortured their loved ones. We were good at what we did too, finding new and innovative ways to inflict pain without causing death. Sure, we lost a patient here and there if they became too weak or one of our doctors became too enthralled in their work, but it was a small price to pay to do God's work. He's told me he wants me to do this, he's told me this was my purpose when he put me on this earth. I take the Lord's words very seriously, and so have made it my duty in life to make sure I complete each job to the best of my ability. I failed with this demon though. And now I must right my wrongs or my family will feel the wrath of God as retribution for my lack of ability. Continuing down the dark corridor, the screams of the others fill my head with rage and torment. I steady my nerves and continue, resolute in my goal. The trail of blood I was following finally leads straight to the main hall of the asylum. Being the middle of the night, the room was empty and shared the darkness of the hallway. I stood in the middle of the room, swaying the lantern from side to side in attempt to find the creature, and as the spotlight hit the humanoid shape slumped in the corner of the room I frantically grabbed for my pistol. Pulling the hammer of the gun back with a click to indicate it was ready to fire, I aimed the barrel towards the thing that took my friends from me. It was mumbling something repeatedly, but I couldn't quite make out what he was saying. It was most likely something foul and disgusting, possibly sexual in nature. Many of these demons enjoyed screaming or mumbling obscenities to make us uncomfortable. For some reason the finger I had pressed against the trigger wouldn't budge. I began to walk closer to the demon slowly, my feet seemingly controlled by some other force. Why? Eventually I could make out a single word they seemed to continuously repeat. The blood in my veins boiled and burst as the singular word entered my mind. WHY? Question mark. A broken bar. WHY? Question mark. You have the audacity to ask why after doing the things you've done. How dare you, sir? How dare you question the Lord's work? Why would you harm the very people doing the work of God? I screamed, unsure of why I was even entertaining the creature in front of me. I'm not sick. The creature replies with a trembling voice, I've done nothing to you, and yet day in and day out you do the vilest things to me. Do you truly think God would make you electrocute me through my temples and burn my skin repeatedly? Do you think it God's work to drill into someone's skull and cut into their brains? Do you think it to be God's work to rape and beat your patients, regardless of age, gender, or ability? You're not doing God's work, you're doing the devil's bidding, and you're just as vile and crazy as you claim us to be. The demon screamed in reply, fear and tears filling his eyes. You murdered my colleagues, you killed in the most brutal of ways. I replied, and attempt to keep my resolve. Colleagues. You've been my sole tormentor since I arrived here. You and you alone enter that pure white room and stain it with the crimson red of my blood every day. The creature protested. This couldn't be true, of course. I saw with my own eyes as Molly, Samuel, and Daniel lay on the floor cold and lifeless. Thinking about it now, I can't remember their faces though. I don't understand what's going on. My mind races and fear enters my soul as doubt creeps into my mind. Don't listen to him, he's crazy and doesn't know what he speaks of. Finish this and continue your priceless work. A voice echoed in the depths of my mind. This isn't right. The creature in front of me yells through sobs. Of course it is, you're a cretin and need to be eliminated. I heard Molly's voice beside me as I look over to see her standing there in the flesh. What in the hell is this? I ask while jumping back, nearly dropping the pistol in my hand. Hell? No, this is God's work. I hear from the other side of me in Samuel's voice. I look over and drop to my knees, my mind racing and confusion flooding my brain. This isn't happening, this can't be happening. I yell, putting the lantern on the ground as my hands press against my temples. Of course it can, this has always been about you. You are the chosen of God's flock, now end this and kill the demon. Daniel's voice commanded from behind me. I point the gun once more at the creature as tears stream down both of our faces. Please, you don't have to do this. I don't want to die. The demon screams in a desperate attempt to save himself. I close my eyes and attempt to muster the strength to do what I must do. I realize I am not the good force in this story now. I thought myself to be the light and brought only darkness. I can fix this though, I can be the light that I want to be. I can do one last thing to make all this right. My eyes shoot open, and I inhale deeply. The creature's eyes clamped shut in fear. I changed the direction of the barrel to be pressed against my skull and pull the trigger. Breaking news today, as we begin to receive reports of a most confusing incident at the Sinchu Insane Asylum. At 1:24 this morning, a doctor was reported to have shot himself in the main lobby. There were no witnesses to this grisly suicide and no clear motive. The doctor, whose family is asking we keep anonymous, has had some trouble the past few years that seems to have led to a psychotic break. Earlier this year, the doctor's own wife had developed schizophrenia and had killed their 3 children during a hallucination. During the episode, his wife mistakenly shot an innocent man after stabbing him twice with one of her husband's scalpels. We believe at this time that the doctor was driven by grief and resent leading to his suicide. We will report further news as we gather information on this story. So far, there are no other casualties to report.